Wow, that was the fastest I started recording today. This is the third time I've been making this episode, so anyway, if it's slow and dumb, it's probably because my internet is slow and dumb. So I need a microphone stand or something like to make this easier. I need to move it closer. Anyway, so someone told me that moving the microphone closer makes the sound quality better. So anyway, third time I'm making this episode. It's about a book called What Happened to You, and it was about the effects of, you know, trauma on people and how they react to basically keep themselves safe. Like, so your brain, you know, builds up defenses, so it acts a certain way every time a certain situation happens. And I found out this is because when signals are sent to your brain, it starts at the bottom. And that's the most primitive part, like the most automatic, like hormones, breathing, like things you don't even think about. Survival reactions like fight or flight, like all this is like pretty basic biology stuff that we all have. And it's interesting because the top part is where we're really human, where we can make sense of things and be creative and how we see the world and things like that. So there's our primitive like animal instincts that start out the reaction to something. Like when we interpret something that our senses are inputting, we're using the top half or the cortex, and or well, it starts at the bottom. So your senses like send your brain signals through your spinal cord up to your brain stem. That's where it starts at the bottom. So not to get too technical, but so I thought that was interesting that our logic capability comes from the very last part of our brain that the signal gets to. So as it's working up, you're reacting without thinking because your more primal instincts like, oh crap, it's a saber-toothed tiger, run away. Like that needs to be instantaneous or you're dead. So um now normal stressful situations build up the same sort of response. Like, you know, someone's about to throw a punch at you and it's normal and you flinch. That's kind of like an automatic response to something. And the book was like, why do we do those things and how do we, you know, avoid them or not really avoid them, but like allow ourselves to react a different way. So we've built these automatic responses to stress to things like, so it's whatever regulating. So we can't regulate that stuff. We can't tell our brains like, hey, no, everything's fine. Like we're reliving that exact same moment that caused that same reaction. So that's why PTSD works because in a war, your brain, your whole body has to go into survival mode because it's war. Like go to sleep, you're dead. You aren't alert for 2 seconds, you're dead. Like you need to be on point, like peak human survival mode. And then you come back and it's like a car backfires and you're like, your brain goes gunshot and it does the exact same thing that you would have done when you were in the war. So sometimes people avoid certain things that trigger that because you can't really stop doing that. Your brain has become used to that, has built up memory of that reaction. And what's interesting is like all your cells kind of remember that. Like all your cells are affected by trauma or whatever. So like your brain isn't the only thing that's reacting automatically. Like your whole existence does. So then it's like, okay, how do I stop reacting that way? Like, so for me, I'm in a pretty constant stressful situation, but not all the time. So like when I'm not in a stressful situation, I am pretty good. I'm like happy, I'm good. Like there's no worries. I'm not gonna snap at you, I'm not gonna blow up. But if I'm triggered in that same way, like triggered in the sense like actually like triggering a response, not like triggered like, oh, Trump is president. Like um more like I said before about the PTSD example, more like I hear a sound that makes my body, go into that mode that isn't good because I'm not in a war, I'm not getting shot at. It's just a car in normal life. Um, but your brain doesn't, realize that until the signal gets to the top part where it's like, hey, that's just a motorcycle or a car. It's not gunshots. So how do you then avoid, that automatic PTSD get to cover response? Like, so that was really interesting to me. Like everything you do has a reason, like why you do what you do. There's a one thing that, could show you why you do what you do, but you got to be able to like recognize it. And that's where it got interesting because the way to, not react as badly or not relive the same moment, you have to do things differently. You have to change how you used to be. Like you can't be how you used to be because that's what, got you to that response. Like you can't be how you were in the war. You got to be how you are here. And a lot of times it's like building something from scratch. You have to build like the war version of you and the home version of you. Like the one that's like not in survival mode constantly. But so I'm in a stressful situation, I react poorly. Like I get mad or scared or anything. Like and I become a real pain in the ass. Like a real not so nice guy. Like you don't want to be around me when that happens. So the thing is, you got to catch it before it gets to that point. You got to be like, okay, what's stressing me out? Avoid that or do it differently in a way that's not going to stress me out. Like we went to Disney World this last week and it was fun and it was fun a lot. And then I would like go into these weird moods and I wouldn't be able to like turn it off. Like, I don't know. Like some sort of something made me react a way that is automatic and I can't really stop. So I guess the trick is to stop it before it even happens. And that might be avoid the thing that triggers it. So when there's like a trigger warning or whatever, I kind of get it now. I mean, at first when I was less educated, I guess, but let's say, um, triggered was used in a way that was like kind of an insult, like, oh, Trump's president, triggered, like kind of thing. Like, I'm triggered, like, as in mad, kind of like. So that was the wrong use of that word. So now I'm like, okay, maybe I should be a little more tolerant than I used to be, like in high school. Like, high school me, not good. Kind of lame. Not nice to people. Like, I mean, nice, but like, not this nice. um, so I need to either avoid those stressful situations. There's medication. There's all kinds of stuff. Unfortunately, I can't really avoid stressful situations because like I have to be helped to do a lot of stuff. Like I have to be lifted in the shower. I have to be put on the toilet. Like it's not. It's a stressful environment if you're me. Like if you have no control over your body at all, really, and you're at the mercy of anyone else, like it's stressful. Like it's not like being eaten by a tiger or like being chased by some dude like or kidnapped or there's plenty of things that I could list that would cause a stressful situation that would be a stressful situation. So anything that goes back to that situation is going to be like triggering that same response. Um, so like for me, I don't really avoid the triggering thing because it happens all the time. Like I need a shower. I gotta deal with the stressful situation. Like now it's not as stressful now because I am on an anti-anxiety thing. So I don't know if it's actually doing anything. Yeah, I don't know if it's actually doing anything, but I feel like it is. So I'm gonna keep taking it. But it's made me more chill. Like, it's a routine thing that I do all the time. So why is it stressing me out? I mean, obviously because I have no control. So if something happens, I'm plop on the ground. So yeah. And then I like overthink a lot. I'm anxious all the time because I get nervous. Like I've been dropped. I've fallen like a bazillion times. Now recently I haven't, but um anything that kind of triggers that same like if I get moved too much in a certain direction, I'll freak out. Like I'll go like my heart will jump, like I feel it. Like so now that I'm recognizing that I'm always doing that same response, like I don't know, like calm down after that. Like that's a thing. Like it just makes me jump. Like that's an automatic like like I've fallen before, I felt off balance before. It's made me jumpy, I guess, when people touch me. Like I'm like, but if I'm like in a secure spot, like in my wheelchair or whatever, I'm not gonna react that way. So I can turn it off. Like I know like which situations that response happens in and which don't. So I like people might think I'm like crazy, like, oh, don't touch me. Like, but no, I mean, listening to that book made me gain a lot of perspective too. Like, I really don't have it as bad as some people. And so I'm grateful for that. And even though I don't show it all the time, I definitely am. But yeah, like listening to stories like that are like, well, that didn't happen to me, so it's not so bad. It's one way to feel a little bit better about the whole situation, but yeah, so it's given me a bit more perspective. Like, there was a story about a guy who was a is a convicted, or well, he's released now, but was a convicted second degree murderer. And basically, when that guy was younger, I can't think of his name right now, but when he was younger, he wanted to be a doctor. He had straight A's. Like you wouldn't think he would become like a second degree murderer, but what happened was, at his home, like he wasn't loved, he wasn't nurtured, and then um where he found those things was on the streets. So like it's a new perspective. Like you think like why are they on the streets? Like are they just bad people? Like no, not necessarily. They were just underloved kids by their family and by their parents. And then they find love amongst other people that, didn't feel like they were loved at home. And those are the people that you feel good around, that you feel appreciate you, and it might be the streets, it might be a gang. Like I mean, it's a totally new perspective that I never would have thought about. And it makes me look at people a little differently. Like because a lot of times people just go about their business like, oh, it's normal. I act like a crazy person when something stresses me out. Like it's not really normal. That's because you've been through something that is, you know, caused that reaction to happen. It might not be the same exact stress, but if anything is like stressing you out, you might react the same exact way. So it's interesting. Like, and it's also a little bit concerning because if people don't recognize this stuff, they're just gonna repeat it. It's able to be passed down genetically, like post trauma, anything. Like your brain remembers it, like remembers that response. Your existence remembers that response so much that it can literally pass it down. And it's not even like genetic stuff, like how you act. Like your grandparents acted a certain way. I think the example was like fear of dogs. Like, they were there's a stereotype about people who are afraid of dogs, and like it was interesting how they explained it. Like dogs have been used to cause fear in certain people, and they then remember that fear and teach their kids that, and then their kids teach their kids that, and it's just a constant cycle of being afraid of dogs. And it was subtle things like if you like squeeze your kid's hand more when there's a dog coming, or you cross the street really fast when there's a dog coming. So it was very interesting how it also talked about like children being very, very susceptible, or like not susceptible, but malleable. So like that means they're able to be changed, and like they learn things, and they're never the same kid they were the next day because they're learning so much stuff so quickly. It was like some ridiculous number, like 80,000 neurons or something a day. That's a lot of electricity going around in your brain. So anyway, kids pick up on that stuff that we don't think they do, but they absolutely do. Like they were talking about like using curse words and how you treat other people around your baby, or like what content you're watching or reading or whatever. Because their eyes work, they're going around like crazy. They're figuring out what's going on in the world, and they're learning every day, like exponentially. And that's what we got to be concerned about, is how we're really raising our kids to be. Because if we're like, no, we're fine, we figured it all out, and then we're subconsciously or unaware of these subtle things that we're passing down, You wouldn't think that you would be, but you are. So it was really interesting because if you don't stop the cycle consciously, if you're not like, all right, we're not teaching this to the kid, and even if you think that, you might still be. So you got to be very careful. And it's interesting because, you know, I wasn't always like a stress case all the time. I was a happy-go-lucky little dude. Like, and then, you know, life kicks your ass sometimes. Then you turn into current me. But current me has to get back to happy-go-lucky, not a care in the world me, because that's who I really am. Like, that was my childhood. It wasn't like I learned that in childhood. Like, I was loved and cared for. So that was not the issue. I really think the issue was, what happened after, like during life when I was older, like 10, um, up until now, like honestly, last decade probably. Um, but for me, I had a support system around, so I'm what you would call resilient because I've been able to bounce back and process things as I go because the nature of this disease is progressive. So as soon as I'm good with one thing, another thing tends to happen. Like something I'm dealing with right now, not being able to go on the rides at Disney. Like not I was able to go on like the ones I really wanted to go on, and I was willing to, go through the stressful situation of transferring, especially after the first day, like damn Frozen ride. So it's like one of these boat rides. It's like down low, and I was getting into it, and my mom and my brother were helping me. And let's just say I could have ended up like Tua, like concussed, dropped on my head. Like it was a weird transfer, so I'll give him that. But like it was just like nope, nope, like it was bad. So I was able to kind of chill myself out during the ride, but after that, I was like, not so nice because I was stressed about that. And then the fact that I, didn't want to get on anything else. Like, I was like, well, I don't want to be a rag doll today. Like, after what happened earlier, like, and then it was kind of a funny thing. Like, I just kind of did all the chill, relaxing, like, kind of experience type rides. Like, experiencing the vibe of Disney is a whole new thing. Like, I'm not used to that, but like, I'll be 21 and it'll be way easier to enjoy the vibe somewhere and just chillax with the adults, drink a little bit, talk a little bit. That's my kind of fun. Like I've noticed that I have way more fun doing that than anything. So it won't be so bad next time. But this time I was dealing with the fact that, I have to accept that I can't do all this stuff that I used to think was fun. Like, but I can do plenty of the same stuff I already was doing. Like, rides weren't a big thing for me anyway. I mean, now I can feel some G's through driving fast in my car. So that replaces my adrenaline rush. No, I'm just kidding. But really, I don't know what helps me with adrenaline. Anyway, um, so yeah, that's something I was dealing with right now. And I was a little grumpy and like everyone was telling me not to be grumpy. I'm like, yeah, I'm trying, but I'm dealing with my own inability right now. So just give me a minute. Like I'll be done soon. Just hold on. But something like I'm having issues with is like a lot of my friends are like having a hard time right now, and I really wish I could do something, but I can't. So here's the next part of the podcast. Like obviously what happened to them, it's a long list. So, I'm not gonna get into it, but it's like serious therapy needed kind of list, and can't do it on your own. But I mean, okay, so the next part of the podcast is it's not going to change unless you make an effort to, unless you literally like try your best to not be the way you are currently. Like so you have to be like, all right, let's define what I really don't like about myself. Like I turn into an asshole, or I am violent and I like to punch people. Like, you have to be like, what do I really need to fix? And maybe fix isn't the right word, but process through and build a better way is a better word for it, or a better way to put it. Um, so you don't necessarily need therapy, but like it helps. Um, but like to change, you really have to make a conscious decision. If you're doing the same thing you've always been doing and you're getting the same results, don't be shocked. That's all I'm saying. Like sometimes you got to change the formula a little bit. So sometimes you gotta be like, all right, what I'm doing currently is not working out for me. I'm not the happiest guy I should be. I'm not the most easygoing guy I should be. I'm not the least stressful guy I could be. Like, you have to like, what's your full potential? Like, where do you want to be in life? And don't say nowhere because that is not a good answer. Not an answer. Like, why are you here? Once you define that, you can go, all right, here's some things that I need to change in order to get to this point. You know, you have to decide where you want to be. And you can't be like, oh, I want to be in the same spot I've always been. Like, come on, adapt. Let's go. Life is constantly changing. If you can't adapt to a situation, like, for example, your whole school plan for the next whatever amount of years doesn't work out. It's not the end of the world. You know what is the end of the world? And I've said this before. Wait for it. You guessed it. It's the end of the world. So it's not the end of the world. But for somebody who has a plan, only one plan, or isn't as able to adapt, because that's not a bad thing. I just think I'm more able to adapt quicker because I've been doing it my entire life. Not everyone has that same life experience to be able to do that. So yeah, if you can't adapt, it's hard. You got to be able to adapt. And if you don't know how to adapt, you can learn how to adapt. Like you just have to define like a new thing, find a new path. And sure, it might take a minute, but like, if you're depressed for a week or a month, then you like get some great idea. Like people who are my friend's age, who's 19, they haven't experienced enough life to get like any ideas, to get any like, hey, I want to do that. Like you should have like a backup plan and plan C and plan D, because life is not just going to let you walk right through and win unless you have that mentality, unless you are able to adapt to new things, like alter your plans and be totally happy with the new plan. Like going to college, I'm 20, almost 21, so I've had a little bit of life experience in school and things like that, and things that I really want to have a career in. It was like landscape architecture, and I was like, it's too much art and bleh. So I left that. So then I, you know, kind of was thinking like, all right, what else should I do? So I took a break and I took a leave of absence, transfer schools, started a major in general studies just to do it, just have something and kind of explore things that I like to do and just find out what I like to do. And one day I was like, you know what? Podcasts are a thing. Like, let's make it. Let's do one because I've been through a lot of experience and I want people to know. I want to share that with people. I want to help people with my experiences. So made the show. And it's not huge, but it's good enough for me. Like I think I'm getting out there. One of my videos already has 630 views or something. So if I keep up with it, which again, I'm so bad with this. I'm like up, down, motivated, not motivated. But now I'm like, no, we're doing this. Like I need something to relieve the stress. Like I need an escape of sorts. And this is it. And yeah, I'm talking to a camera, but people listen to it. People hear my voice. People go, "Hey, that guy's pretty cool." Like I know, took you long enough to notice that, um, but yeah. So but it doesn't change. Like I wouldn't be where I am today if I wasn't like, okay, this is ridiculous. You gotta fix this. Okay, like fix it. So I was like, all right, I don't know how to fix it. I need help to fix it. So you need help, and you should not be afraid to admit that you need help because you cannot do it on your own. Like I said in the previous segment, you know, you have to pick your. Wait, I lost my train of thought. Shit. I was on a roll there. I blew it. Oh, you have to pick that path. You have to be like, all right, I don't know everything. I need help. I need to admit that I need help because I can't do it alone. Like I said in the other segment, if you think you can do it alone, you can't. Like you need a support system to be able to, or that to be able to bounce back and be resilient. If you don't have that support structure, you can't get back to like a normal sense of like safety and security. You just can't. So you need that support system. And if you don't have it and you think you're doing it on your own and you're just bottling it up, it's not good. You have to be like, all right, I can't do this anymore. This is not working out for me. I can't bottle things up because nobody knows what I'm feeling and then I just explode. So I need to talk to somebody. I need friends that I can talk to. Like, you need a therapist. You need like a church group. I don't know. Like, but you need to make the choice to not do it on your own, to get help and be like, I need to change this part of me and I need to evolve myself and get one step closer to my full potential. Like, even if you don't think you have that, you definitely do. And I guarantee you, if you're listening to this and you're younger than me, you have time to figure it out. So don't quit now. You haven't even done anything. Like, you haven't had a chance to see if this backup plan's even going to work. You were so set on the plan A and plan A didn't work out. You have to see if plan B is going to work. You don't even know. You're just like still upset about plan A failing. You got to give it time or it's never going to process. You're never going to see where you're going if you're giving up now. So make the change to talk to people, to vent, to process your stuff. Because if you don't, you're going to die from the inside out. And that might be extreme, but it might happen. So if you're new to the channel, like, subscribe, go check out my other videos. And yes, this is like a YouTube channel now. So I will still be posting the audio though. So if you're more of a podcast person, it's up for you. All right, video. That's going to do it for the life and lessons of me. And I'll catch you on the next one.